Natty or not? Natty or not? Who's natty? Who's not? I feel like this could be a really unbelievably deep and complex conversation that probably actually would be better suited to having a discussion, like me and another person sitting down and getting into all the nuances of it, because it's not as simple and straightforward as it might appear on the surface. But I'm going to do my best here. I'm just going to try to hit some major points, and perhaps we'll get into a deeper discussion if people comment and people like this and people want more and they would like some more nuance on specific topics like FFMI. We can certainly have another video where I talk specifically about something like that. But I'm going to try to give some brief opinions here, and I'm going to start with being critical. I'm going to start on that side. I'm going to be critical of the Natty or Not movement, discussion, whatever you want to call it. So the first thing I want to say is, why do you care? Like, why do you care whether or not someone else is taking steroids? And one of the things that I take issue with is that there's this, people seem to think that just because someone took steroids that they don't know what they're talking about. It like automatically discredits them. Like, well, that guy took steroids, so you can't listen to anything that he says. And the thing is that, like, there's some truth in that. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that there isn't some truth in that. But overall, most of the people who used steroids were doing so because they were competing at a very elite level. So and I'm only going to name people who have openly admitted, if Stan Efferding or Dave Tate, John Hack, Louis Simmons, if those people gave me lifting advice, I would listen. I would listen. Mark Bell, I would listen. And especially when someone tells you something like, well, my best squat was 800 and then I started taking steroids and then I squatted 1,000. It's like, I have no reason to doubt you because now you've admitted that you took steroids and that was how you got to 1,000 pounds. So I figured, yeah, okay, sure, you probably did get to 800 pounds drug-free. Like, I don't have a reason to doubt that because now you've already outed yourself and said, yeah, I took steroids to get to 1,000. Like, when I got stuck at 800, I started taking performance-enhancing drugs. And it's like, well, tell me what you did, though, to get to 800. Like, I want to know how you got to the point where you got to. It's kind of like people look at things and they're like, oh, Klokov, I'm going to do Klokov's workout. It's like, that's stupid. Why don't you look at Klokov's training and ask yourself, how did he get to where he is instead of what is he doing currently? If you look at Ilya Ilyin and you're like, oh, well, all he does is, snatch, clean and jerk, and back squat or something like that. Or I think that's Lasha really more than anyone else. I'm pretty sure I've seen Ilya front squat. But the point being, you look at someone like Lasha and all he does is the lifts and back squats. And it's like, that's what he does currently when he's already at the elite level. How did he get there? Like, what was he doing before? Like, what was he doing whenever he was a beginner? If your snatch is currently at 100 kilos, okay, maybe you should be following whatever he was doing whenever he was snatching 100 kilos instead of trying to copy what he does when he's snatching 220 kilos. You follow what I'm saying? Whether or not he's ever used steroids doesn't really matter. If he wants to give me lifting advice, I'll certainly listen. So the very first thing I want to approach here is just simply saying that whether or not someone has ever used performance-enhancing drugs doesn't automatically mean that everything they say is bullshit. Now, that's the criticism I have of the Natty Not thing, right? Like, why do you care? And I don't. Like, I really don't care. If Stan Efferding had to use steroids to become the world's strongest bodybuilder, I'm like, okay. I don't have to do the same. Same thing for Christoffen. Christoffen squatting 1,000 pounds for reps. It's like, well, he admitted it. So he's not a liar, and probably has really good lifting advice. Maybe it'll help me squat 500 for reps or something. I'm not sitting here pretending, oh, I can squat 1,000 pounds for reps if I just copy his training and my work ethic, right? No, I'm realistic. I'm never going to squat 1,000 pounds. Shit. For me, even with steroids, I probably wouldn't squat 1,000 pounds. I'm just not built for it. But the point being, I don't think that just automatically discredits anyone. So, there's our first little part of the Natty or Not discussion, all right? Okay. The part where I do appreciate people's, I told you I was going to start with the criticism. the part where I do appreciate people's anger and frustration with the Natty or Not thing is the number of people out there who are fake. You know, you have a lot of people out there who are claiming, oh yeah, you know, just follow my program, you'll get the same results. And it's like, nope, not going to happen. And those people are claiming that they're drug free, but they're actually using all kinds of stuff. So, you know, you have some dude who's pitching some supplement that he happens to sell. I have someone in mind, but I'm not going to call them out because I don't want to give these people any more attention than they already get. But he's extremely popular. He has over 1 million followers on IG. And, you know, he's drug free. He's never touched the stuff. And it's like, sure. So now you're just a liar. The problem with this is that even if the other information that you're stating is good information, it's really hard to trust you because you're clearly lying about your steroid use. So you're lying about your use of performance-enhancing drugs. Why should I trust your advice on how to train or how to eat? You know, if you get caught lying repeatedly, people are going to stop trusting you. So whenever you're clearly lying about something, you know, maybe people don't trust the other things that you say, even whenever they're correct. Okay? Like the boy who called wolf, right? Meanwhile, we have these other individuals who are selling some program, you know, buy this program, follow my intermittent fasting, and buy this supplement, and do this and do that. And you know, it's like I commented on previous videos about people who make up lies. You know, oh, I had a pituitary tumor, and I cured it by following a ketogenic diet and taking these supplements that I just so happen to sell. And it's like, no. No, because pituitary adenoma is not, it wouldn't even respond to a ketogenic diet. They're not glucose-dependent tumors. They rely on oxidative phosphorylation, so what'd you do, stop breathing? And of course, you know, I cured it by taking supplements. And it's like, no, you didn't. In fact, because the supplements that you took don't even have the same mechanism of action as the pharmacological drugs that are prescription drugs. You know, people are like, oh yeah, I took Mucuna. Okay, Mucuna has L-Dopa, which is similar to levodopa, right? You know, the Deprinyl. But they use bromocriptine and cabergoline to treat those. So, no. You wouldn't cure your pituitary tumor by taking Deprinyl. Wouldn't happen. Sorry. Anyways. Oh, huperzine A. Okay, huperzine A is similar to the galantamine or memantine. It's not similar to bromocriptine or cabergoline. So people are, they're actually going to harm someone, because I really hope that someone with a tumor out there doesn't actually come across that information and then try to treat it themselves. That would be a horrible thing. That would be a really horrible thing. So I do appreciate the fact that these people calling out the Natty or Not guys, the fake natties, I appreciate your frustration, because those people are usually selling something, and they're selling more than just bullshit. They're selling some supplement that they just so happen to have, or they have some program that's magical. I got news for you guys. Programming is not magical. You add weight to the bar, and then you decrease the reps, and then you try to increase the reps with a heavier weight, and then you add more weight to the bar, and you start back down again. So, you know, if you can do 100 pounds for 3, you try to get to 100 pounds for 5, and then you add 5 pounds, and now it's 105. And then you try to do 3 reps with 105, and then you try to do 4 reps with 105, and 5 reps with 105, and then you add 5 more pounds, and now it's 110, and guess what you do? 3 reps. You know, like, I'm oversimplifying, but that's basically the general gist of it, is that you either try to add reps or you try to add weight to the bar. Like, this isn't rocket science. And then, you know, once you become advanced, then, yeah, sure, you have to have a little bit more periodization in it. You got to spend time on hypertrophy. You got to spend time on strength. You have to change things up a little bit as you become more and more advanced. But still, everything comes down to linear progression and progressive overload. I realize people are like, oh, no, it's not linear progression because I do this. But let me ask you a question. Is your goal to put 5 more pounds on the bar? Is your goal to lift more weight? Because if your goal is to continually lift more weight, then it's kind of linear anyways, right? So sure, there's a whole bunch of fluctuation between point A and point B, But at the end of the day, from the macro level, from the 10,000 foot view, we're still talking about linear. You're trying to increase the weight over time. So there we go. I'm off on a tangent with that, but the point being that there are people out there trying to sell you programs where it's like, oh yeah, you can get super strong, and here's an easy way to get super strong. And it's like, no, there isn't an easy way. You just get stronger. Like the weight on the bar goes up, and it's still hard. Yeah. So these fake natties, though, oh, I eat 5,000, 6,000 calories a day, and I'm still shredded lean. Well, you know what? Let me back up here. There's a question for you. What is natty versus what isn't? Are we talking about anabolic steroids? Are we talking only about AAS? Or are we talking about other things? Because if we're talking about any performance enhancing drug, then I think most people aren't natty. I'm not natty, if you want to think about it that way, right? So, like, have you ever used Jacked? Well, Jacked has DMAA in it. I realize it's banned now, but I bet a lot of you used it when it was available. Did you ever use Ultimate Orange? Well, Ultimate Orange had ephedrine in it, and that's not allowed now. I think you can still get it over the counter as a medication, but I think that it actually has been banned in most sports as far as I am aware of. I don't know, like I know it's banned in the Olympics. I know it's banned in the NCAA. I don't know the rules for every single sport out there, but I would assume that whatever drug tested federations there are for powerlifting, you're not allowed to take ephedrine. I would assume that natural bodybuilding doesn't allow it either. So, where do we draw this line on who's natty, who's not, right? Oh, you used Craze. Well, yeah, I did. Craze was... I thought it was just over-caffeinated. I thought there was way too much caffeine in it. I had no idea that there was some kind of amphetamine in it. But no one knew that. Apparently they snuck that in and didn't put it on the label. So, did that pull my natty card? Because I definitely was taking something that I didn't know that was in there, which isn't an excuse. But the point being, how many people took Craze as a pre-workout? And what, are all those people not natty now? Or are we going to say that natty is just simply a matter of whether or not, you've used anabolic steroids? Because if we're drawing the line and saying, oh no, it just applies to, testosterone, nandrolone, trenbolone, Anavar, whatever, oxandrolone, if we're just going to apply it to anabolic steroids, then probably most people are natty. If we're going to apply it to things like ephedrine, DMAA, then most people aren't natty. So that's something to consider there. It's like, where do you draw the line for what is and isn't natty? So maybe that guy who eats 5,000 calories a day and is still shredded lean, despite only working out for 1 hour a day, maybe he actually is natty, because maybe he's just using things like, ephedrine and, albuterol, or, I don't know, T3, T4, Adderall, Vyvanse. Maybe they're just using a whole bunch of stimulants, and that's why they're super lean. It's not like taking anabolic steroids would make you super lean. We have plenty of examples of fat powerlifters and, fat world's strongest man competitors who are clearly using anabolic steroids, and they're not lean from, you don't just get lean. It's not like, oh, I took Deca and Tren and it made me lean. No. It made you big, it made you strong. That's why you're competing in the world's strongest man, other than the fact that you're 7 feet tall or close to it. But the point being, that doesn't just automatically make you lean. What makes people lean is a lot of the other stuff that they're using, whether they're using Clen or Cytomel or some type of stimulant. So there's that question. And then how hard do we want to take this? Maybe you think caffeine isn't natty. If someone takes caffeine pills, that's not natty anymore. Because you have to eat nothing but grass-fed organic meat and organic vegetables to be natty. You're cheating if you, take creatine and citrulline, beta-alanine. You could go down that path. You could definitely go down that path. I went down that path. There was a point in time where I refused to use whey protein because I thought, well, whey protein is a processed food, so I'm not going to use it because it's processed. Now, don't get me wrong, I ate all the cheese I wanted and drank a ton of milk. Um, but yeah, I was convinced that, oh no, I don't want to use whey protein because it's processed, and I'm removing all processed foods from my diet, which is still a good thing for you to do. But at some level, like, you took it too far. So I refused to use whey protein because it's processed, which is kind of silly because really whey protein is kind of a food more than a supplement. Um, but yeah, there was a time where I refused to eat any processed food, and I would refuse to use any kind of supplement at all. I wouldn't take any supplements whatsoever, like not even vitamin D or zinc or anything like that, which is, again, kind of silly. Like, I'm being critical of myself, but that was a much younger me. Wow, that's more than 10 years ago. Jeez. So, a very, very young version of me was convinced that, oh no, I don't take magnesium, and I don't take vitamin D, and I don't take zinc, because those are supplements. You should be getting everything from food. And that meant also not using any kind of supplement like whey protein. So, but of course that actually came after my experience with a fake natty. So I will share a little story here. I don't want to drop the person's name, but this person had been a former, I think he won the Mr. America, actually. And I hired this guy to be my trainer. And I did everything he told me to. And he happened to be sponsored by MHP. And so I took every MHP product you can think of because he told me I needed it. He's like, oh yeah, you got to drink this up your mass, and you got to take this T-bomb too, and you got to take this and this and this and this. I had all the RTD, the ready to drink meals and stuff like that. I had, you name it, I was buying everything that was MHP. It was like, oh, I got to have this MHP joint supplement. I got to have this MHP protein and this MHP, peri-workout carbohydrate bullshit. So how do you think that went for me? It didn't. I made, like, the worst progress ever, and I couldn't understand why I didn't look like him. Now, this is a very young me. This is a very young me. So, like, this is not like a 20-year-old Chad. This is even younger than that. I was very naive. And I got scammed. I followed his bodybuilding program. Oh, it's going to make you so big and jacked, And it didn't. I did all these curls every single day. I did tricep, skull crushers and tricep extensions and leg extensions and hamstring curls. And I'm not going to sit here and say I didn't gain anything. I did, right? Like, you can't lift weights and not make some progress. But it didn't go well. Like, I spent a lot of money on supplements, and that didn't help. So after, I don't know, 3-4 months of, like, very pitiful progress, mind you, I came from a background where I was already lifting. I was just doing sport type stuff. I was doing strength and conditioning type training. And then I decided I wanted to get bigger and stronger. So that was why I hired this guy, and I wasn't getting bigger, and I actually got weaker. Like, my back squat went down, my deadlift went down because I wasn't doing them. I was doing all this bodybuilding shit. Eventually I realized I got scammed, and then I went the polar opposite direction where I'm like, I'm not going to take any supplements at all. And I just went back to doing regular stuff that I had already been doing. We can talk about that some other time, the nostalgia of, having to clean the barbell in order to squat it because I didn't have a squat rack, right? Which isn't such a bad thing. But it meant that I did a lot of high rep stuff because you're limited by how much you can clean. But really, power clean at that time. I didn't even know how to do a proper clean, so all I did was basically lift the barbell off the ground and get it to my shoulders, and then pop it overhead and lower it onto my back, and then squat it for as many reps as I could, which meant that I would be doing sets of 50 sometimes because the limiting factor was how much weight could I lift off the ground. It wasn't how much could I squat. It was a factor of I can't lift anything more than this off the ground. So, I'm doing 155 pounds for sets of 50 because that was all the more weight I could lift off the ground to get to my back. Obviously, if you're doing 155 pounds for a set of 50, and you're doing that for multiple sets of 50, you probably could be squatting significantly more weight for sets of 5. But I didn't have a squat rack. But that made way more progress. than these bodybuilding splits where I was doing, hamstring curls and leg extensions and leg presses and all this stuff like that. It just didn't have the same effect. So I got scammed. And that guy insisted that he was drug-free, and I believed him because I didn't know any better. I mean, at 18, I believed that those bodybuilders really weren't on drugs because they all said, "Oh no, I don't take steroids." So I believed them, especially this guy because I met him in person. Like, would you lie to my face? Apparently, yes. So this guy lied to me and insisted that he'd never taken steroids in his whole life. It's just that he trains really well and he takes the right supplements and eats the right food. And that was another bullshit thing. I ate so much fucking tuna, chicken breast, and rice. It's not even funny. Oatmeal and egg whites for breakfast, and lunch was a can of tuna and I don't know, fucking rice cakes or some shit because I had to have something I could take with me to class, right? So here I am carting around cans of tuna and fucking rice cakes, and dinner's chicken breast with white rice. You can't eat anything other than that because apparently somehow, I don't know, if you eat red meat or something, you'll get fat. What a crock of shit. And I ate it all, right? I ate all that shit up. I fell for it. So that's why I do understand and appreciate why people hate the fake natties out there. I got scammed by one when I was 18. I'm almost 38 now. I would never fall for that again, obviously, because now I'm aware of the fact that people use steroids, and they're very prevalent. So there you guys have it. Basically, my first part of this whole thing is just simply saying that if your natty argument is that someone being natty or not discredits them, I disagree with that part. I have no, like if Jim Wendler tells you something, you should shut up and listen. It doesn't matter whether or not he's ever used steroids. He knows what he's talking about, right? But if it's a matter of people claiming that they're natty and this supplement that they happen to sell is the secret, or this program that they happen to sell is the secret, I fully 100% understand your frustration and your anger because I felt that when I got screwed. I was so mad. And the way I found it out was some guy at the gym, right? So I was training at the gym and I'm frustrated and I'm talking to this guy and I was like, dude, like, you're pretty strong. I was like, what do you do? And he told me what he did and I was like, that is nothing like what this guy has me doing. And he's like, well, like, no shit. He's like, come on, kid. This guy must have been in his 40s. So I'm 18, I'm a kid. And he's, come on, kid. He's like, he's obviously on steroids. And I was like, no, he can't possibly be on steroids. He's like, dude, like, you need to wake up. That guy's on steroids. He's like 5'5" and he's like 275 pounds with shredded, striated, deltoids and everything. And he's like, that guy's definitely on steroids. Like, you can't look like that without steroids. Well, no one told me that. So that was news to me. And I didn't believe it at first. That guy told me it and I didn't believe it. And then, I started reading online and talking to other people and reaching out, and I found out that, yes, sure enough, whenever you're 5.5 feet tall, it's very hard for you to weigh nearly 300 pounds with 6% body fat. That's very unlikely that that's going to happen without the use of steroids. And so at that point, I felt absolutely devastated because I looked up to this guy. He was a mentor and he was my coach, and I wanted to be just like him. And yeah, turns out that he was a lying piece of shit who not only stole my money, if you think about it, for all the money I spent on him training me, but then he stole my money on the other end because he got me to buy all these fucking supplements that did nothing. So, yeah, I was spending money on supplements and drinking meal replacement shakes instead of buying fucking food. So, I understand your frustration because I've been there. And so I sympathize and empathize because it happened to me too. That's where I'm going to end this one. So I've given you guys my criticism, which I feel is rather mild criticism of the Natty or Not thing. I feel like most people would probably agree with me. I've pointed out that I don't know where we draw the line on what is and isn't natty also. You know, it's possible someone's eating 5,000 calories a day and they're shredded lean just because they take so many goddamn stimulants. Maybe that person really is natty because they're not using anabolic steroids. And then, of course, the fake natties who are selling stuff and lying to you, well, yeah, you guys are right to be mad at them, because that's a really shitty thing to do. Even if you know better, some 15, 16-year-old kid, 18-year-old kid doesn't know any better. And so they're getting scammed by these people. You know, some 18-year-old kid is getting scammed because he doesn't know that these people are lying. He thinks that it's actually physically possible that these people could be as big and jacked as they are. Yeah. And if you guys want, we can start talking about how you can tell. You know, we can get into, like, if you comment below, maybe I'll do a video talking about, you know, fat-free mass index, or how fast people gain muscle. You know, that's a dead giveaway. You know, some guy's 150 pounds and suddenly he's 175 pounds and shredded 3 months later. It's like, no, you're on something. We can have that discussion. That's a separate discussion. But, you know, there are definitely ways that you can tell if someone's not definitely 100%, but most of the time. Most of the time you can tell the really obvious ones, and you guys already know that. So, yeah, that's my opinion on the natty or not thing.